Murray. You seem like you're so far away compared to our normal room. So we're gonna go off of our agenda and start with the Board of Examiners in Optometry first. And for that, there we go. We will have Julia come and speak to us.
Hello, Chair. I'm Amanda.
Oh, I was going to say.
You're
okay.
all right. And yes,
right.
I'm here to
Amanda,
present.
I'm looking at the wrong thing. I'm goofy. That's Julia. Yes.
That's all right. So I'm from Legislative Research. I'm going to go over the budget for the Board of Examiners in Optometry. So this is a biennial agency completely funded with licensing fees. There's no SGF. They're looking for approval for the current year and the 2 budget out years, so 26 and 27. If you flip to page 2, you're going to have the starting page for the current year. Their approved budget for fiscal year 25 is a bit higher than the previous year because in the current year, their budget includes the legislative pay plan in 23 and funding to cross-train an executive director for 3 months in fiscal year 25 and then 3 months in fiscal year 26. So you'll see it there too. This current fiscal year, item 3, you can see that the agency is requesting to raise their official hospitality spending limit to $1,000. This is entirely paid for from the licensing fee fund. The agency feels it would help address inflation. On the legislature's part, it only requires modifying language in the current bill to say 1,000 instead of 650. Moving forward to page 4, there's the fiscal 26 analysis. Here you're going to see about a $40,000 increase in expenditures for fiscal year 26 over the approved for 25. This is primarily in salary and wage expenditures tied to both increases in group health insurance and the last 3 months of cross-training that executive director. Item 3 in that list, you can see the agency's request includes planning for an increase in contractual service expenditures of $22,000. The agency has said that it's planning for increased rent should the board office move to Topeka and because of the new director. They're also looking for a cell phone for the board to use at the recommendation of OITS and increased estimates for fees paid to OITS and legal counsel. Lastly, item 4 shows a decrease in commodities expenditures. Lastly, going forward, we have fiscal year 27. That year is a bit lower than the previous years. The agency won't need expenditures to cross-train the new executive director. It does carry forward, though, budgeting more for rent, fees, and the phone that I described earlier. And with that, I can stand for any questions the chair may have.
All right, are there any questions about the Board of Optometry? Representative Riley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for your presentation. I mean, I appreciate the frequently asked questions of those answers. So I found out, that, their office right now is in Lawrence.
Correct.
So is it that they're going to move just because wherever the executive officer is going to be, is that?
That's my understanding.
So have they started that search?
That'd be a great question for Jan following me. Yes.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Thank you. Amanda, if we have any more questions, you'll have to jump back up.
Sure, and my apologies, I should have introduced Jan Murray, the executive director, is here behind me.
Yes, thank you. All right. Now we're looking for Jan Murray. Welcome to committee. Thanks for being here. Do you have the microphone on?
Sorry. Jan Murray, I'm the executive officer for the Board of Optometry. With the time change, I had planned for a board member, Dawn Bircher, the president of the board. She was planning to attend virtually, but with the time change, she couldn't get her schedule switched, so she's unable to attend. So the question about the office moving to Topeka and when we're going to start searching for a person, the plan is to post the position in March, have the person start in April, and then let it be between the person that they hire and the board if the office moves to Topeka. And I have started putting out little feelers with facilities as to finding a space that we could use if the office does move. I mean, it's not a set thing. It's just the board thought if we offered to move the office to Topeka, that a person in Topeka that didn't want to drive to Lawrence wouldn't have to. So it might help us find the correct person. And that's the reason we put that in there in the budget for the office to move to Topeka.
Well, I have to tell you, this morning in appropriations, the one thing that we discovered was how many people are moving their offices. So there's an awful lot of money being spent moving offices. So we need to have a bingo board that shows us where and when everyone's going to do it and how much we've spent. So are there any questions for Jan? Representative Turk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm looking at your, the trends of your ending balance. With the last couple years of additional spending, you're trending downwards. Do you have a plan to level that out in the future? Is there anything?
Well, hopefully, once the new executive director is hired, then that'll level out. We won't be paying 2 salaries. It'll be back down to 1. The other thing that we're doing is that we're getting a new licensing database, and once we do that, we hope to be able to switch renewals from the odd renewals are renewing in odd years, the odd number licensees are renewing in the odd number years, and the even number licensees would be renewing in the even license years, which would even out the revenue coming in. It wouldn't be, because one year I have more licensees renewing than I do the next year, and it's like 100 or so that renew.
That was going to be my second question.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was curious what's your income flow?
Yeah, that's
look
one
like?
reason, and that's the hope. And once, like I said, we get the new database, that will be possible to do.
So which is greater, your odd or your even years?
You would ask, because I'm thinking it's the even year.
Okay, I'm looking at a transfer in '24, so I'm guessing so.
Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
thinking it's even in the odds, I think. I'm not, like I said, I'm not sure. I should have paid more closer attention, but all I know is I have roughly around 400 that renew each year.
Well, I'm looking at your fees and compared to your regulatory limit, I really like where they're at, and I commend you for keeping low fees and encourage you to continue doing that for as long as the almighty dollar allows it.
Yeah, we raised fees in 2023, I think, for the new licensing database. That was the first time we had raised fees since 2004. And I had hoped to get through my tenure without having to raise fees, but I didn't quite make it.
Well, considering the last few years, I think you've mitigated that well. And again, Kim, please continue to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything else? Thank you so much for being here. Are you going to stay a little while in case we need something else?
Yeah.
Or do you want to just ditch?
Oh, that. Unless I
All
need
right.
to hang out.
All right, well, thank you. I do have one question for you, though. If you find an executive director that lives in Lawrence, will you just stay in Lawrence?
Right, we can just stay in Lawrence. I mean, the office is perfect. I mean, as I was telling somebody, it's like, we're not downtown Lawrence, the office is located at 6th and Lawrence Avenue, and that we can park right out in front, like we own the place, so it's perfect, and I'm sharing my office with an insurance agent, and I call him the car guy. He sells used cars, and he uses the office to come in and do the paperwork, so we don't see him very often, but yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, well, maybe you should just stay there. It's
Yeah,
not that
I
bad.
think it should.
would probably be cheaper to just pay some
It-
mileage.
Yeah, well, yeah, because, the rent almost doubles to moving it to Topeka with the size of the office and the cost indices, square footage. So, yeah, I'd
My
like to see it
suggestion
stay.
is
Yep.
stay in Lawrence and pay the mileage.
Yep.
See how that goes. If it becomes too cost ineffective, then you can change. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, then we will move on. Make sure I'm doing this right. To the Kansas Dental Board. And this time I want Julia to come up. And I'll be right.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman and members of the committee. My name is Julia Kofoid, and I am a legislative fellow with KLRD. I will be first presenting on the Kansas Dental Board. I will make note that the Executive Director, Lane Hemsley, is in the audience and may be willing to stand for questions if the committee has any. On the first page, there is an agency overview. The Kansas Dental Board licenses qualified candidates desiring to practice dentistry or dental hygiene in Kansas, administers examinations, and issues credentials to applicants according to the licensure regulations. The board conducts inspections of licensees to ensure compliance with sanitary and other regulations and investigates complaints of incompetence, negligence, illegal practice, and other violations of the Dental Practices Act. And also to note, the agency is a fee-funded agency, so their only source of funds comes from their dental board fee fund. If you turn to page 2, I'll get into the 2025 analysis. The agency is requesting just over $580,000, which is no change from the fiscal year 2025 approved amount. They have no SGF funds reappropriated from fiscal year 24 into fiscal year 2025. The request included no supplemental requests, and they had no other changes. If you move on to page 3, I'll go ahead and do fiscal year 2026. The agency is requesting $544,000, which is a decrease of $44,000 or 7.5% below the approved amount for fiscal year 2025. There are no enhancement requests for fiscal year 2026. The agency does have 4 other changes. The first is a deletion of $42,000 for computer programming expenses associated with services outside of the Office of Information Technology Services. This was due to being a part of Senate Bill 66 and licensing database modernization projects for their database and licensing system. If you move on to page 4, I will continue with fiscal year 2026. There was a decrease of $4,000 for intergovernmental communication services, which is an operating charge that will reimburse the Kansas State Office of Information Technology Services for monthly recurring services. They also have an increase of just over $1,400 for increased dues and subscriptions. This includes a fee for the American Dental Association and also a payment to retain the law licensure for the agency's executive director. The final other change for this fiscal year is just over $1,000 for increased operating charges and vehicle mileage costs. Are there any questions for fiscal year 2025 or 2026? Okay.
You may go ahead.
Fiscal year 2027, the agency is requesting $510,000, which is a decrease of $78,000, or 13.3% below the approved amount for fiscal year 2025. They did not have any enhancement requests. They do have 3 other changes. The first is a decrease of just over $72,000, again, for the computer programming expenses for Senate Bill 66. If you turn to page 6, I will continue with fiscal year 2027. The agency is asking for a decrease of $6,000, again, for the state building's capital charge, for a portion of their rental payments and other costs of state-owned buildings not allowed under other funds. The agency also asked for an increase of $633 for the dues and subscriptions, including the fee for the American Dental Association and the payment to retain the law licensure for the agency's executive director. And then I'll just make note that there are tables on page 7 and 8, and those include the agency's 10-year expenditure history and ending balances and fees. And I would be happy to stand for any questions for the dental board.
All right, are there any questions for Julia? Representative Turk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm looking at ending balances here. Am I bouncing back from back and forth from budgets that are SGF funded back to a fee-funded agency. Sometimes I'm confused, so I'll admit that in the beginning. The ending balance is at $1,280,867. Is that what they have in their ending balance? Is that right? Am I reading that correctly? Back of page 8?
For page 8, yes, the ending balance line, yeah.
All right, and I'm just talking to the committee here, we're looking at average over the last 3 years, $555,000 in roughly averaged in expenditures with 2 years of operating funds. I'm curious, at what point do we give the taxpayers back their money?
I'm not sure, Representative, that Julia needs to answer that. Maybe we should have the executive director come up and answer some of those questions. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you.
I'll get you off the hot seat. And I invite Lane Hemsley, Executive Director of the Kansas Dental Board. Welcome to committee. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Lane Hemsley. I'm the Director of the Kansas Dental Board. I've served in that role since 2011. And so I think Julia did a spectacular job kind of covering the ground for us between fiscal years 25, 26, and 27. If I may address Representative Turk's question.
Please.
The fee fund ending balances are due really in large part to some dentists who, based on our projections, did not retire when we anticipated them to retire. So we have some dentists that are staying in the profession a little bit longer than we anticipated, and so that fee balance has grown. We do anticipate that to flatline and start leveling off and dropping down now that our licensing project is well underway. And then we have performed some preliminary studies on what it would look like if we reduce fees more. I oversaw one fee reduction in fiscal year 2016 at $25 a pop. We anticipated that to level off at that time. And then, as I mentioned, some additional dentists and dental hygienists have stayed in the profession longer than anticipated. Once those individuals roll off the rolls in the next couple of years, that number should drop. In a couple of instances, I would anticipate about 2 years fairly precipitously as I get rid of some of my early 1950s, mid-1950s licensees.
Yes, go ahead, Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I hope nobody takes my initial critique as critique of your budget. I've always looked forward to your budget. It's always very clean, very concise. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You always keep your numbers tight. Your growth is very limited, and in 2026, it looks like it's going the way everybody likes. And I appreciate that information because that was one of my follow-up questions, where you see your industry trending, and given our current demographic shift that we're on the precipice of, that this is an industry that's going to be hit. That information is very helpful. So moving forward and knowing that you keep your budget so very tight, you're thinking that with impending retirements that the fee funds will decrease. The fee funds coming into your agency will decrease for a while?
Yes, Representative. I do anticipate a decrease in the general fee fund balance over the course of the next few years. I expect a fairly large decrease and then a flatlining for a while. We, just for our purposes of conversation, we license about the same number of dentists every year. The dentists are the heavy hitters in the group, right? And their fees are more, there's less dentists, but their fees are essentially 2 to 2.5 times greater than a dental hygienist. And so if I have dentists staying in the profession longer and I keep adding what I typically add every year, then obviously my fee fund balance will grow. But we don't have a slippage in the number of dentists that are coming to the state every year. It's fairly stable. It's just my older dentists that have just enjoyed the practice or have wanted to stay a little bit longer. But as I mentioned, we are willing to undertake a review and have. With our new licensing database coming online, we'll have a really good snapshot in about 2 years once that goes live about who's still playing in the margins of age and the like. So I appreciate the question and the compliment as well.
Representative Riley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think you brought up the topic where I was going. So I think there's 11 agencies that are now going on with this licensing software that make it quicker, faster as far as putting out licenses. So therefore, that should be less labor intensive than it's been in the last 5 years. So just looking at the size of your agency, can you justify why you have 3 full-time people instead of 2?
Sure. Happy to answer the question. The board has always operated on a 3.0 FTE or full-time equivalent positions. There are numerous occasions where workflow separates. So even with the new licensing database coming on board, the workflow will remain. It will just be digitized. And that workflow necessitates double review of our paralegal and myself before licensure is granted. And it also requires the licensing specialist to review documentation coming in, to reject documentation that's unacceptable and receive that which might be acceptable. And then in addition, obviously, not only do we license, we have a number of legal cases, and obviously with my license to practice law, the board uses me heavily in that capacity. So there really are 2 people that are involved in the licensing process, and then the legal work, large part of it falls on me. So 3.0 FT is an incredibly lean operation for our purposes.
Okay. Representative Pickert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How many licensed dentists are there in Kansas?
Oh, so that's a great question. So I took a snapshot on January 2nd just to kind of see how our renewals were doing, because our renewal period's well underway and coming to a close. My snapshot on January 2nd of 2025 said there were 1,621 licensed dentists reporting a Kansas location. And that doesn't mean there are 1,621 separate dental offices, because sometimes dentists will work in groups of 3, 4, 10, and so on. But that's what I have as of that particular date.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Is there another question for Lane? I don't think you really answered the question. I know that you anticipate that your fees are going to go down. When you say precipitously, are you talking about by $1 million?
Oh, no.
Are you talking about, I mean, there's a lot of money in it.
Right.
And this legislature has a huge appetite in trying to ease up what taxpayers have to pay. And seeing high ending balances has been very distasteful for many of us. So there's my question.
Sure.
You can take it as you want to.
This is a fair question. Well, first we'll start with taxpayers. I don't disagree that taxpayers are paying this fee, but we're a 100% fee-funded agency. So for every dollar we receive from a dentist or dental hygienist coming in, we give a dime back to the state general fund. So we're not point-of-sale transaction operations. So when your constituents go to Walmart or Amazon or Target or whatever, and they're paying the freight at the cash register, that's not coming to the dental board. None of it comes to the dental board. We're self-funded, self-operated. We pay numerous fees to the monumental surcharge to pay for all the buildings, from the governor's office to the state house to the judicial branch. So all that gets covered by your practitioners. I don't disagree the fee fund balance is a little high. That's true. And we have run preliminary numbers, but until our licensing database goes online, I know the board doesn't have an appetite to change their funds, because we don't know what that's going to look like as that comes online. And so when that comes online in the next 18 or 24 months, we'll have a really good snapshot of who's leaving, who's staying, and what numbers we're looking at and the like. I will say, with a budget of approximately $587,927 this year, to have a budget or a balance that's just slightly over $1 million is pretty standard operating procedure for many, depending on what you want your ending balance to look like based on outflow. And so that's just 1 times the amount of outflow that you would have this year. And so that's what we've aimed at for many years, to have 1 times the outflow, and so that's where we've kind of hovered, and the board's been happy there.
Okay, well, Representative Turk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We know the difference between tax dollars and fee-funded agencies. It doesn't change the fact that the same wallet that pays the taxes to the state, or the same wallet that pays these fees. And as I said before, roughly $555,000 a year is what it takes to operate your agency, which means you would deplete your reserves in 2 years and 4 months. It is slightly above by at least
300,000?
1 time the average that this group sees in ending balances of their budgets. That's why it came up. The question for us moving forward, it would be, at what point do we make another transfer like we did in 24? It's just something for the committee to think about. Appreciate your information. The root of my question, I think you answered it, which was, don't get too hasty with that transfer quite yet until we see what this fall off looks like. Can I generalize it about like that?
Yes, I would say that's a fair statement, Representative.
Okay. Well, I think given the reputation of this particular budget, how tight they keep it, and how few times in the last several years they've asked for any adjustments, I would respect that at this time. So I appreciate your information. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Representative.
All right. Are there any other questions? If not, thank you very much for
Thank
being
you.
at committee.
Thank you, Madam
I
Chair.
hope you're going to get that off soon on your,
Oh,
was
yeah,
that an
that-
angry dentist? who did
No,
that
no,
to
it
you?
wasn't angry dentist. It was just angry concrete. So concrete and bones don't match, but
Really?
that's what
We've,
that.
You could talk to Chairman Waymaster about that. He would understand.
Indeed, Chairman Waymaster and I go way back, and I saw him in the hallway pedaling on a scooter.
Yes,
That
yes.
looked like a rougher situation than I had there, so.
Yeah, I think so. All right.
Thank you, Madam
well,
Chair.
Get well soon. Thank you for being here. Then we'll move on now to Kansas Board of Hearing Examiners. Julia, would you come back up to the podium for us? And after that, we'll see Danielle Dorner, Executive Director. Go ahead.
Hello again, Chairwoman and members of the committee. Danielle Dorner is the Executive Director. She is on her way. The last I knew, she lives out of town and was coming with the time change, but I will go ahead and get into their budget. The Kansas Board of Hearing Aid Examiners' mission is to regulate hearing aid dispensers by determining the competence of new practitioners, entering the field, ensuring licensees keep their equipment calibrated and meet continuing education requirements, and investigating complaints. This is, again, a fee-funded agency, so their only source of funds come from the Hearing Aid Board Fee Fund. If you will turn to page 2, I will get into the fiscal year 2025 analysis. The agency is asking for a request of just under $38,000, which is a decrease of $11,000 or 23.1% below the approved amount for fiscal year 2025. They did not have any SGF funds reappropriated from fiscal year 2024 into 2025. There were no supplemental requests, and they did have 3 other changes. The first of which is a decrease of just over $6,000. This is due to a decrease in salaries and wages below the amount included in the legislator's fiscal year 2025 pay plan. The agency's board members were included in the pay plan funding, and they should not have been. Additionally, on page 3, you'll see a request for a decrease of just over $4,000. This is due to decreased spending on contractual services and website development. And the agency is also asking for a decrease of $710 for all other adjustments. This is mainly due to decreases in expenditures for computer software and programming and data processing supplies. Are there any questions for fiscal year 2025?
Not seeing any, you may continue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you turn to page 4, fiscal year 2026, The agency is requesting just over $38,000. This is a decrease of $11,000 or 22.5% below the fiscal year 2025 approved amount. There are no enhancement requests for fiscal year 2026. They are asking for a decrease of just over $6,000 in salaries and wages. Again, for the legislature's 2025 pay plan, because the board members were included and should not have been. Additionally, they are asking for a decrease of just over $4,000 in contractual services. This is for a decrease in website development costs. There is also a decrease they are asking for of $443 for all other adjustments. This is for decreased expenditures for computer software and programming and also travel. If you'll turn to page 6, I will get into fiscal year 2027. The agency is requesting just under $39,000, which is a decrease of $10,000 or 21.1% below the fiscal year 2025 approved amount. There are no enhancement requests. The agency is continuing the request for salaries and wages, which is a decrease of just over $5,000 for the fiscal year 2025 pay plan due to the board members being included in the pay plan but should not have been. Additionally, they are asking for a decrease of just over $4,000 for contractual services for items such as website development. And finally, the agency is asking for a decrease of $689 for all other adjustments for fiscal year 2027. This is mainly due to decreased expenditures for computer software maintenance and travel reimbursement. I will also point out that there are tables on pages 8 and 9 that have the 10-year expenditure history, special revenue funds, and fees. And with that, I would be happy to stand for any questions.
All right. Does anyone have a question for Julia? Representative Riley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just before she leaves and before the Executive Director comes up, I would like to make sure that everybody in the committee recognizes from looking at the frequent questions, answered questions, that, I mean, this department agency is so small that the executive director is just part-time. He's using his own, they have a 3-year-old laptop, but he's using his own printer. He's driving in his own car. I mean, if you talk about an agency that is doing it on less than a shoestring, you're right here.
That was one of my questions. Thank you, Representative, because there are no FTEs listed. Half, there's a half. I didn't even see that. Wow.
She's, Madam Chair, if I may, she is technically less than a half. So she works less than part-time, but she still fulfills the roles of everything an executive director would do. So she's in charge of the budget. She plans everything for the board meetings. She still fulfills all of those roles. There's not an office space, everything like that.
Can I tell you how refreshing that is to hear? We've had a few rough days, so that's really nice. I mean, I don't want to wish anybody to have to do everything, but I do appreciate it. So I'll tell you what, we don't have any more questions for Julia, and we don't have the, oh, she came. Yes. I thought
Okay.
someone went down to find you.
Yes, perfect. Yes, so Danielle is here. I will turn it over to her.
Come on up.
Hi, I'm Danielle Dorner. It's nice to meet you all. I've never done this before, so go easy on me. What kind of questions can I answer?
How do you do it?
I don't know. Yeah, so part of the executive officer position, it is required that we not only hold a dispensing license, but we also practice. So I am a practicing audiologist. So you know what, when the opportunity came to give back to all the hard work that our board members do and making sure that all of our patients stay safe, I took it as an opportunity to really fulfill that role, and I love it.
I'm sorry. It's just so unusual to hear. Are you sure you know you're in the Capitol?
I do. It's so beautiful. I've never been here.
So do you get paid? I
do. So
very much.
Yeah, it's not very much, but again, I see it more of like a giving back opportunity for those who've come before me and to pave a way for those behind me. I have small children, so I think about them and again, all of our patients that I work with for the past over 10 years. But I do get minimal pay. I get reimbursed mileage for when we do hold our testing sites and everything. And it's really also a pleasure to get to know all of the different people that are coming into the field, of which I never would have gotten to since I'm in Kansas City. And there's a lot of people in the rural areas who I've never been able to reach before.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have any questions? Representative Turk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, I'm reading this and I honestly feel bad. I feel like borderline taking advantage of you. When you use resources, printing, whatever, is there a mechanism for which you can record that for reimbursement, or do you just take that out of pocket?
So I submit to the SMART system anytime I purchase paper and things like that. I've never, but everything else I've had. So anytime I have to purchase supplies, we are in line again to do the digitizing of the licensing. So once we do that, then all of that paper product that I purchase again and then go through SMART, that will be alleviated. So. And you will see our decrease in budget is because we're transitioning to that, so we no longer have to pay our website developer.
Okay. Hopefully you plan on doing this for a while, because I think you have a fan base here.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Please, moving forward, at least for the next year, because, God willing, we all come back and we can keep some consistency. Please keep us apprised of updates as you grow in your position and you learn some new things. I'm not wearing my hearing aids today, but I too utilize them, so I know how complicated the industry is, and you're appreciated.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Representative. Okay, well, thanks for being here. I'm sorry you had to rush over.
No, that's all right. Thank you for your time.
All right, I think of all of our hearings that we've had, this might be the quickest one we will have for everyone, and we'll start it with recommendations for the Kansas Board of Examiners of Optometry. Is there any suggestion as to what we do? I'll get my stuff back together. Well, then I would make, let's see, we've got a governor's recommendation. To add to their, the only thing we have to decide is, do you want to expand their hospitality account? Does anyone have a problem with it? Representative Turk.
Can you save me some time? It's $500-ish, then I'm going to move it up to 1,000.
Yeah, I think, yeah, 650. I thought it was 650 and it went to 1,000.
Okay, well, given that that's the average from every other agency we've seen, I'm not going to hold beef for that. I think 1,000 is reasonable.
Okay. All right, then I move that we accept the Board of Optometry recommendation and as it is, with no changes, agree with LBC. There's a motion by Representative Riley. There's a second by, I thought, oh, okay, you can make my second. This is so easy, I'm thinking it's more difficult. All right, if there are any questions, if not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion passes. Now we'll move on to the Kansas Dental Board. Yes, Representative Pickert.
I move that we accept the LBC's recommendation for the Kansas Dental Board for years 2025 and 2026 and 2027.
All right, is there a second? Second by Representative Melton. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion passes. All right, now we'll move on to the Kansas Board of Hearing Aid Examiners. I move that we accept their budgets. and the LBC's recommendation as presented. Is there a second? A second by Representative Van Houten. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion passes. Thank you, committee.
Go back to sit. Is that something?
I think we'll do that on Monday because we have time. Okay, all right. Oh, that's right. No. I don't have this for the committee. So I'm planning on having a meeting on Wednesday and Thursday. And one of it is to go over later budgets that we will have to look at next year so that we can kind of get a feel for that. We're not meeting on Monday. We have no meeting on Monday. And then Tuesday, we have a meeting with the post-audit for the KBI. It will be an executive session. Okay, that's on Tuesday. Pardon me? No, I was going to have meetings on Wednesday and Thursday and not on Friday. So far, okay? Not Monday or Friday. I'm really making it difficult for everyone. I'm sorry. Whew. Yes. Done. It's already on the agenda, sir. Yeah. And our very bright reviser has already provided yeah, she took care of it. So, all right. Thank you, everyone. This meeting is adjourned.